Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Don't you agree?
The Cinik Radio Podcast.
Hi, I'm Chad L. Coleman, Tyrese from The Walking Dead, and Cuddy from The Wire, and you are listening to the Cinik Radio Podcast. Here your host, Cinik.
Hey, the facts are Spider-Man belongs in the MCU. Sony was delusional thinking they didn't need Marvel, and now he's back. And we, the fans, are 100% proudly responsible for that.
Agree?
As long as DC wants to make dark and gritty movies, they're going to lag behind Marvel in every category.
And Ryan.
Batman vs. Superman is objectively better than Infinity War.
IG, did we just forget Kim?
You guys completely suck.
This is the greatest show of all time.
And you are listening to episode 151 of the Cinik Radio Podcast. And I'm your host, Cinik. And joining me, as always, my co-hosts, Igri, Ryan, and Kim. And we're discussing the finale of the Book of Boba Fett, episode 7, In the Name of Honor. And doing a segment called, What is the Game Watching This Week? Well, this week, it was all about the Super Bowl, its commercials, and the halftime show. So, IG, Stafford to Cooper Kupp was definitely in every defensive coordinator's nightmares throughout the regular season and the playoffs. And it was more of the same in the Super Bowl. I mean, what a great competitive back and forth game. Which team were you rooting for, and were you happy with the result?
Well, like I said in the last podcast, I was rooting for the Bengals because I didn't really have a horse in either race. So I picked the team which I thought had the cooler helmets. And I mean, I put my money where my mouth is. I went to Vegas. I put a bet on the game. I lost $50. I'm out. But it was a great game. And, you know, I would rather watch a game like that where it's competitive all the way through. And it was down to the last 2 minutes, and like it could have gone either way. I don't want to watch a blowout, not in the Super Bowl. These are supposed to be the best two teams in the league. And so it was a great game. It was a lot of fun to watch, but you're absolutely right. Like, Cooper Kupp cannot be stopped, and Stafford was a good addition to the LA Rams. He was grossly underused in Detroit. And I'm glad that he got a chance to actually show how good he is, because like he was a number one overall pick, and he's deserving of actually getting a championship ring.
Yeah, I kind of like the way that the Rams pushed all their chips forward, made all the big trades. I mean, gave up draft picks for the next decade to put a team that was ready to play and win the Super Bowl. So I respect the move. Sean McVay coached amazingly, and it was the first time in a long time where I was rooting for both teams, because I loved what the Rams did, but I also was kind of, I like the underdog aspect of Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. It's been a long time. I mean, this team went from not winning a playoff game in its history on the road to winning a couple and a Super Bowl berth. And they were within a player or two of taking it home. So I'm really excited for the future of the Bengals organization. It's going to be interesting to see how things kind of pan out with the Rams, because there was some talk of McVay possibly moving on and some of their other guys retiring. So it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of keep that core together and make another run next year.
Well, their offensive coordinator is coming to be the head coach in Minnesota. So they are losing some pieces as far as their coaching goes anyway.
So let's get to the commercials. Kim, what were some of your favorites this year?
I had a hard time actually watching it. I used to be a huge fan of the Rams back when I lived in St. Louis. Greatest show on turf era, And then when they went back to LA, I just kind of lost my interest in it, so to speak. And now that we actually live here in California, I found overwhelmingly compelled to still, at my core, still root for the Rams, and I'm kind of glad I did. I didn't bet any money like you did, but hey. As far as commercials go, there was the one that really stuck out the most. There was a bunch of mortgage commercials that were on, and my husband had this brilliant little moment. He's like, if you see your mortgage company on TV during the Super Bowl, you paid too much for your house. And he's in real estate. So like that really kind of stuck with me. And I just kind of blindsided every other commercial that I saw and was like up and down and out of the room. I just found it very hard to connect with it this year.
The ads were a lot more inventive and fun than they were last year. The one ad that kind of confused me a little bit was the one for avocados from Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
We know they're amazing. How many avocados did you have to sell in order to put that ad on? We know
they're blocked now. We completely blocked all Mexican avocados from, like, you paid all this money for this commercial and now you can't even get them.
How about you, Ryan? What struck your fancy?
I like the Larry David commercial just because I'm a Larry David fan. Although I've got mixed feelings on crypto and whether or not it's a grift. And I thought it was a little strange for him to do even though the commercial was kind of tongue in cheek and ironic, it was weird. So I liked it, but still thought it was weird. My favorite commercial is probably the commercial for Nope. The next Jordan Peele movie. I think he's one of, kind of our, or this generation's, best directors. I love Get Out. I think Us is one of the best movies in the last 10 years. And every time I watch that movie, I just think how much better it is. So, and this looks great. Like it looks interesting, like he did with Get Out and with Us. Like, you get a little bit, like you kind of know, it seems like it's some kind of an alien invasion thing, but there's not much given. And, he's got some great actors in it. At this point, he can do no wrong. And so I'm really excited to see Nope. So that was probably my favorite, commercial.
How about you, IG?
Well, the Cheetos and Doritos Flamin' Hot ones with the Push It song going in there with salt and pepper. Like, I don't know why, like all of a sudden watching a sloth eat some Doritos and then go scurrying up a tree like it's crazy and fast. Like sloths aren't that fast. That one kind of made me giggle a little bit. That was fun. It's not necessary, but it was fun. The one that made me cringe the most was the meta one with the animatronic things from like
oh my God,
Chuck E. Cheese type thing. I was like, why and they're putting like VR helmets on a Chuck E. Cheese doll type thing. I'm like, okay, like
I would imagine that whole commercial could have been traumatizing for the youth, watching like animated or fluffy, lovable characters die in front of them, like, ugh.
Yeah, so I wasn't a fan of that one, but yeah, I like the Doritos commercial. I mean, most years they do some Doritos things that are pretty fun and pretty funny, so I can get it.
Yeah, showing my inner geek, Doctor Strange 2, the Multiverse of Madness was probably my favorite trailer, just because it had a lot of big reveals. Visually, it was absolutely stunning. And being a slave to nostalgia, the Sopranos Chevy Silverado commercial was definitely one of my favorites. I liked seeing the kids back and kind of the opening montage and the theme song. It took me back. I mean, I really enjoyed that show. I kind of miss now that it's over. It was shot in the area that I live in. I know you can't tell that from the accent, but it was shot in the area that I live in. Overall, I think they were kind of all hits this year. Very few misses. Last year, I can't say that I had a favorite out of any of them, and I watched them kind of just as intently as I did. All right, IG, let's talk the halftime show. In my humble opinion, it could not have been better. We could have got a little more Dr. Dre and M and Snoop and less 50. In the last few years, I've been guilty of kind of flipping the channels when it comes on and looking for alternative programming. But why no Tupac hologram? Where was the Tupac hologram? Wouldn't it be great to see him and Dr. Dre do California Love?
It could have been fun, I guess. I really enjoyed it, except I'm not a big Kendrick Lamar fan. And maybe it's because of my age or something. That type of just that sound in the rap and stuff, I'm just not a big fan. I really like the older stuff, like the stuff Dre was doing and Eminem and even 50. It was a good show. Like, apparently there's some controversy running around about, Snoop crip walking and Eminem kneeling. And I don't get it because why not? Like, that is stuff that they're known for, especially like the crip walk. Like you're going to put Snoop on, let him do a song and not let him crip walk. That's not right. He needs to crip walk, or we all want him to crip walk, and people are mad about that. I don't understand.
Well, given the amount of controversy in the past halftime shows, those guys were going to do them. You knew they were going to. I saw a big headline that was like, Snoop smokes a joint before the gate, before going out there. It's like,
he does. He smokes a joint before everything.
Exactly. It'd be a headline if he didn't smoke a joint before going out there.
It was like Snoop does something legal in a state, does something he does all the time in a state where it is legal. Like, right. It didn't make any sense. Like, it's the dumbest.
By the way, they deliver it to your house here.
Wow.
You can go online, order it, and in 30 minutes through DoorDash, they will bring it to your house.
Awesome.
How much time has changed, huh?
Yeah.
All right, we open the Boba Fett episode in the sanctuary, and Fett and Finnick are kind of surveying the damage. The smart play might have been to pull back to the palace. But Ryan, did you agree with Drash and Scott kind of giving Boba Fett a little, hey, why aren't we staying here and defending Mos Espa?
I think a lot of it made very little sense. Like, would agree you want to, you know, if you're going to kind of hunker down, you probably want to go in the place where you have the best advantage tactically. Also the place where you might have a Rancor and a Slave One to help you out if you need it. So it didn't really make sense. And I didn't quite buy, you know, their explanation, because it's not like the Syndicate was running around murdering, you know, citizens of Mos Espa. They were there to kill Boba Fett. I mean, okay, they did bomb them, but it's not like they had to defend the population. So it would have made sense to go to back to Jabba's palace and hunker down there. So I think that logic didn't make sense. And I think, you know, as we might get to, you know, later on, like a lot of my criticism for the episode was just like tactically they made dumb decisions throughout. And I think that was the first of many bad choices, you know, throughout the episode.
Yeah, we're going to get to some more of those. IG, does Boba Fett have a Mandalorian problem? I enjoyed the kind of the bromance that they've built together. Can Boba Fett ever be the star of the show if you have somebody standing next to you that looks better than you do and wearing almost the same outfit, sounds better than you do, can do just about everything else better, and wielding a legendary weapon?
Yeah, that's one of the problems, I guess, that they went with this season that I thought that they probably were going to do, because the amount of airtime and just pull that the Mandalorian has, like it's just going to give them that much more pull to the general population, right? And they did it also with bringing Grogu back, which I thought they should have avoided at all cost in this, and then they just shoehorned it in and made us. I mean, I still love it, but they still didn't have to do it here. This could have been more about Boba Fett and what Boba Fett is doing. But you know, it's a money-making machine for Disney, right? And if it works, they're going to keep doing it. And it did work, because, you know, I can't say that I wasn't excited to see Din Djarin, because I was, but it just takes some of the luster off of Boba Fett.
Yeah, it really does. And Kim, let's talk about spreading yourself too thin. We're all guilty of it from time to time. But if you're putting together an army and you've only got about 10 foot soldiers, was it wise to spread them all over the city?
No, not at all. And I don't know if that has anything to do with the fact that Fett's younger, right? So he's more immature. He's not as experienced. I don't know if there's like a playoff of that somehow. Like Ryan was saying, there was a lot of very bizarre decisions that were kind of made in the episode that kind of made me feel like this was all just done very hastily. Like it's a money grab, you know, and in the original movies, there wasn't a whole lot of dialogue amongst these characters anyway. So they're really trying to stretch it. And I think that's why they're dumping so many different, you know, amazing characters in to the show to try to spice it up a little bit. I don't know. It was very bizarre to me. It was a weird direction to take.
They really could have took some notes from the Battle of the Bastards or the Battle of Winterfell and maybe spent some extra money on the extras, the background actors, and, you know, gave them a little bit of a force. It was kind of pitiful. Yeah, it really, the mods made up the majority of it, and that's not saying a lot. IG, the three crime families of Mos Espa agreed to stay out of the conflict, only to turn on Boba's forces, and we lose the Gamorrean guards. I mean, could we have given them a few kills before someone huffed and puffed and threw them off the side of the cliff?
I think that was kind of what was leading to it, because there's just two of them, which I can't believe that, like, they had two. Why do you only have two? Like, they showed some fighting in Mandalorian season 2. Like, go hire a couple. Like, apparently they're out there ready to be hired, which is just, and they're easy to be bought, apparently, because he's like, hey, you were faithful to your last master, be faithful to me. And they went, okay. So get some more fucking people. Like, especially if you have a palace, get some people. Like, you like, I know droids are good, but you need some people that can do something.
Yeah, it's no wonder Chrysanthemum was able to get in there with like 6 people in a droid in a palace that could have hundreds of it. No, he just slipped right through. The heroes beat back the Pike soldiers with a coordinated attack and assist from Cinik, with sometimes a little bit too convenient the saves. We get the answer of the age-old question of what happens when a buzz droid falls in love with a droidica. They meet, they fall in love, and they have a baby. We get the Scorpnik Annihilator droids. I said that right?
Yeah.
I hope so. Ryan, if you were on the battlefield when those things rolled in, would you have changed your mind about the spice trade? Like, nah, we're good, Syndicate. You can do whatever you want. Just take those things back with you.
Probably would have changed my mind, but at a minimum, I probably would have gotten away. Like, again, why hunker down and just shoot at it? It made like that was, again, another tactical decision. It made no sense. There had to be a way to run away or, get those things to follow you and get away from the middle of the city. I don't know. Anything but sit there and shoot at it, with no effect.
They didn't seem extraordinarily fast either.
No.
So getting away shouldn't be that hard.
Sort of like when you try to kidnap a fat person, they've got zero chance of getting away. Their cardio is just going to be shot. I think that was one of the rules of Zombieland, right? Cardio. Kim Grogu's choice. We talked last week about how I felt about the pro-Jedi stance that Baby Yoda chose not to be pushed around by anybody. Did you agree with this decision? Did you disagree? And what kind of impact do you think it'll have going forward?
It was definitely a red pill, blue pill moment, right? I think that this is one of those moments in a series where you've got a character who has reached a plateau at their cuteness level, right? And now they're making decisions on which direction they're going to take, and I liked it. I liked the direction it went. I really, truly did. And I liked the fact that in the mid-credit scenes, he's underneath his little garments, he's got his chainmail on, and I thought that was adorable. So there's a lot to it. And there's a lot of little Easter eggs that are kind of sprinkled out throughout this. And I think that it's going to kind of lead into season 3 for The Mandalorian and where that's going to be going next. And I'm really excited to see how that progresses.
Look, I'm really only into it if they make him a helmet with ears.
They got to make a helmet. They need a
visor helmet with ears. Then I'm in. Yeah. If he doesn't get a helmet, then we have problems.
I mean, the issue with the decision is like, again, and that's, it'll come into like my overall review is like, I love everything with Grogu and Mando these episodes. The problem is that this is all like, especially this decision should have happened in Mandalorian season 3.
Yeah.
This decision should have been, and I would have liked to have seen him make the first decide to be a Jedi and then change his mind. And so I really do feel like we lost something. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, I'm sure Filoni and Favreau have a brilliant idea of what's going to happen in season 3. And then, during season 3, I'm going to say, you know what? That was the right choice. But it would have been nice to have had the moments that we had this episode, at some point in season 3 of The Mandalorian, because that's the Mandalorian show. And we got way too much story for Din Djarin and Grogu in Book of Boba Fett.
Well, Ryan, do you think that maybe they didn't think it would appeal to a broad enough audience that we'd had to grab that Mandalorian audience by including those two?
This is Disney. It's Star Wars. They know, like people are going to watch it no matter what. I think it's funny because if we didn't know how TV was made, I would have thought that Disney was like, oh, wow, these first few episodes aren't great reviewed. Let's bring in Mandalorian to save the day. Obviously, they didn't do that. So this was a conscious choice. And I don't understand it. Maybe it was a decision that Disney was like, hey, look, we're loving, they looked at the first, the scripts and they're like, you know what, we need Mando, we need Grogu, and they forced their hand. I don't know. I guess we'll find out in season 3 of Mandalorian, but it was really a weird choice to pivot, in a show that's called The Book of Boba Fett.
IG Fett bails in the middle of the battle, and we basically get one of the best lines of the season. I laughed way too hard at it. He says, I got to go get us some backup. And Djarin's like, who? You're out of friends. I laughed, as somebody with very few friends, I laughed way, way too hard at that. When all your fears come true, I said it a couple episodes ago. I said, he doesn't need to ride that Rancor. But when you have a Rancor and you go get it, you're going to ride it. Did Robert Rodriguez and company stick the landing on this one, not only visually and storytelling wise, and did he make riding the Rancor cool?
Okay, so what we have to compare to is either some of the animated stuff that they've used with some of the Rancors or Return of the Jedi. Now, if we compare to Return of the Jedi, this Rancor is awesome. because they were still doing stop motion and everything when they did the original Rancor. This one looked amazing. It moved real cool. It was laying havoc everywhere it went. I loved it. It looked really, really well done. And I mean, I didn't look closely enough to see how good Boba Fett looked on its back because the Rancor was just so overwhelming on the screen that's what I saw. So like it could have looked like a stick figure riding up there. I probably wouldn't have noticed. But they did really well. I think maybe it was a little too powerful for what it is because it was supposed to be a young Rancor, I think, as well. But I really did like the Rancor, and I think it really kind of maybe cemented Boba Fett's place in Mos Espa because you ride in on a Rancor and save the day. Like, the people are probably going to stand up behind you.
Visually, it was done well. I hate to admit it. And I love when the Rancor broke free and climbed to the top of the building. It had great King Kong vibes to it. Kim, Grogu has more luck against the Rancor than he did the droid, but he saves Mando and soothes the Rancor and puts him to sleep. Does it appear that his connection to the Force has grown with his time with Luke, or maybe perhaps woken up?
I think that it's evidence that he has grown, even though maybe not in stature, but his abilities are taking off. Like he's absorbing. I mean, kids normally absorb information like a sponge, but he's taking what is being taught to him and he's internalizing, he's using it, and he's strengthening his abilities and his powers, and also saving time for a nap, next to his enemies that he suits. So adorable. What's not to like?
Adorable.
Well, he did it. He like, stopped a Mudhorn too. I mean, obviously the kid's very strong in the Force.
Yeah.
And even if you choose the way of the Mandalorian versus the way of the Jedi, that doesn't mean that your Force ability just is taken away from you. They go, okay, give me your card back and you're done. That's a part of who he is. So
I enjoyed that portion of the episode more than I thought I would, kind of soothing the Rancor, putting it to sleep, his Force pull against the droid. I mean, it was all done really well. Ryan, unlike a UFC pay-per-view, we didn't have to wait to nearly 1 a.m. to see the main event as we get Bane versus Fett, the showdown advantage going to Boba. But were you satisfied with the outcome, and could the battle go on a little bit longer?
I would like to have seen him as a more prominent villain longer in the show if we were going to go that route. Like, if he's going to get defeated like that, I'd like to have seen him longer, because I think, for people who watch the Clone Wars, you're like, oh, he's, Cad Bane, he's awesome, he's done all this stuff. But if you weren't a big fan of the Clone Wars and you see this guy, okay, he looks cool, he looks scary. He's supposed to be, they're all scared of him. He's supposed to be bad, tough. But then he kind of goes out, there, he held his own, but like the problem is Boba Fett throughout this show, he's been pretty beatable. And so, I feel like Cad Bane deserved more. Boba Fett deserved more. So I would like to have had him like kind of be a prominent villain longer. But, as a duel, as a showdown, it worked in and of itself. So kind of in a vacuum, that scene works really well.
How about you, IG? Did you like the way the fight played out?
I think it turned into a real classic kind of thing, and it made me think of The Incredibles, right? They got him monologuing. So he could, if he'd have just walked up, knocked the helmet off and shot him and just been done with it, he could have won. Cad Bane would have been the new leader of Mos Espa because he had to start monologuing like a standard villain. And then seeing him kind of turn back to his gaffy stick and going the Tusken Raider route to beat him. Yeah, I kind of thought it was pretty cool, but it was also very telegraphed because he was standing there with the gaffy stick. So I'm like, all right, well, he's going to do some of the gaffy stick. He's not just carrying it around because it looks cool.
Yeah, that'd be like an awkward, encumbering thing to carry around just because it looks cool. It's kind of long and it's sharp in places. And I don't think aesthetically that would be worth the trouble you would go through. Mare Mok-Shaiz sticks her neck out for the very last time. Master Assassin Fennec Shan quickly and quietly kills the opposition leadership so efficiently it would make Anakin proud. But Kim, were you wondering that if this was always an option, why wasn't it first on the list?
If the obvious solution was there, they wouldn't have a show, right? They would have been over in the first episode and, everything would have been done and over with. Kind of goes back to those first several episodes of the series were very just kind of, I almost had a hard time getting through them. I know it's character building. I know it's the increase of the arc and whatnot, but like, oh my God, I was so bored. during the first few episodes, specifically 3 and 4. So having this kind of all tied together towards the end, I actually enjoyed it. And especially with everything going on, was it a rush decision? Sure. But I enjoyed it and I liked watching it and it got me reconnected with it. And it made me excited again to see what happens next. They are confirmed for season 2 already, right?
Not as of yet, but it's kind of, we know it's coming. There's definitely going to be a season 2. Ryan, the day is won. The Pikes are beaten. Mando and his little pal ride off into the sunset, and the healing in Mos Espa has begun. We also get a cutscene of Cobb Vanth in the back to tank, and it looks like he's about to get some mod upgrades. Your rating, final thought on the episode and the season?
I enjoyed the finale. Overall, I enjoyed the episode. It was basically like a version of like the Seven Samurai. They had to make their stand. Again, I think there were some dumb decisions made, but it makes up for it with the Rancor, and it makes up for it with the stuff with Grogu. I take some points off, but I did overall. There was enough kind of fan service, and the duel between Cad Bane and Boba Fett. Again, that was really cool. It just I think for a lot of the show, the context is annoying, but the execution's really good. Really did enjoy the episode. It's probably not at the same level of episodes 5 and 6, but I would give the episode itself about an 8.5 or 9. As a season, I think that's the problem is if you took episodes 5, 6, and 7, I would probably give those a 9.5 as 3 episodes on their own. But as a whole season, just the whole season was disjointed because it was basically Boba Fett for 5 episodes, which is serviceable, and then all of a sudden it pivots to Mandalorian, which is great. But it's not Boba Fett. And that was the show that we got. So I wish that they'd either framed the show differently, like it was, still the Mandalorian, or somehow, framed it so that we were expecting that. But otherwise, I feel like the season just made an error in pivoting to, the Mandalorian and Grogu. As much as I loved it, it changed the show. So I think as a whole, I still would give the season about a 7.5. And again, when we talked about it before, when I do my rewatch of The Mandalorian, I'm going to add these last 3 episodes as part of The Mandalorian because they feel like more of a Mandalorian episode than Boba Fett. But I do, again, love seeing Mandalorian, love seeing Grogu. And my one thing I was going to say earlier is I think that The Mandalorian now officially is referring to Grogu, that Grogu is the actual Mandalorian, and that we're going to see his growth and development as a Mandalorian. And one day, hopefully, Ig, we will get a Grogu helmet with the ears popping out.
I have to agree with Ryan on it. I think they could have probably bridged the gap and people would not be complaining about this if they would have called it the Book of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian. Like if they just made it like right out the gate, the expectation was this isn't solely riding on Fett, and we're going to, have, even though Mandalorian didn't really say a whole lot, in the show, very stoic. But I mean, that's kind of who he is. So I think, had they just done that, it probably would have hit off a lot of critics. I was reading some reviews online earlier today, and everyone's kind of got, from what I've read, a general consensus is that, if this was about Boba Fett, they would have liked to have seen more of just him, like the focus on him, and not so much of all of these diversions, to try to drum up interest. So my overall views on the series, had it been like a mini type of spinoff and it just focused solely on the 3 episodes of interest, I think it would have had just as much of an impact, probably better than had they had, a cumulative 8 hours of just walking scenes and whatnot. Overall, I give it a 7. I wasn't as in love with this as I was with The Mandalorian, and I really liked that series. So I liked seeing all of the little Easter eggs. I liked seeing all of the characters kind of sprinkled in here and having their own little story, and seeing the CGI we didn't even touch on today, I guess, with, Luke. Sure we did last time, but that was brilliant. That was very well done. It looks so much better than what it was previously. And, there was just so much to it, but a 7 for me. And if they, come out with a season 2, I'll be happy to watch it. Now that we've kind of got multiple storylines going in different directions, I think it gives them a little bit more to work with. But I don't think they needed to take 7 episodes in order to achieve that task.
Well, I like the episode. It was a good way to end it. Are there obviously some tactical problems? Well, yeah, but I mean, isn't that kind of what Star Wars is known for? I mean, even like Battle of Endor, like full of tactical problems. So, I mean, are they the greatest tacticians in the world? No. And Boba Fett is certainly not that, because he's used to working by himself. Let's keep going. Let's keep moving and everything. The one thing, like, if you're going to go back to the palace and get something to come and save it, why wouldn't you have brought Slave One? You've got this huge, one of the most powerful gunships available, and you come back with a beast. I would have come back with Slave One, but I didn't write the show, and like they put the Rancor in a couple episodes back, so you had to really pay off the Rancor. I get it. And it was cool. I like the Rancor. I like most of the things they did in this. I didn't mind even the length of the Cad Bane thing. I think it was cool that they brought him in. We get some other things that's fan service for people that like Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff like that. I'm into it. I really enjoy it. I think this episode, if I was just going to stand it alone, I'm probably about a 9 on it. But I think there are some things that take away from other things in the series. So my series rating is probably about an 8. It's still Star Wars. I still love it. I'll still watch it another 10 or 15 times. But The Mandalorian, both seasons 1 and 2, are objectively better than the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, I agree with you on most points. First off, I'm going to give the episode a 7. A bit of a step back between the last two. One of my coworkers loves to yell irrelevant when he argues about anything, but it's mostly sports. The last episode of this was predictable. And it was a lot of fun, and every twist and turn, it was great, but it was obvious. As obvious as the New York sports team's probably never winning another championship unless it's the Yankees. The Scorpnik Annihilator droids were a lot of fun, and I could definitely use about 100% less Pelimoto in my life. I wanted to see Grogu and the Mandalorian part ways, but I have to admit that I did get a serious case of the feels from his reaction from seeing the little fella. It was fun. It checked all the boxes, and I definitely want to see a Boba Fett season 2 with a little more scum and villainy and perhaps like a Sopranos or Goodfellas tone to it. One thing I do want to say, though, I want to say that you can't argue about episodes 7, 8, and 9 and say, they didn't even listen to us. They didn't give us anything we wanted. And then you turn around and we have 2 or 3 seasons full of fan service, and they're smothering us with their fan service. You can't have it both ways. It just doesn't work. I personally love the fan service. Give us more of it. Stop complaining. If every show is based on Tatooine from here on out, I'll be just as happy. But there's going to be a ton of content coming, so don't just judge everything on one show. I'm probably going to give the season of Boba Fett like an 8.5. I enjoyed it. I mean, I think that they could have laid it out a little bit better, maybe split up the episodes like they do Game of Thrones, where they jump back and forth. So it wasn't just a solo Mandalorian story, but it was worth a watch. I'll definitely watch it again because I do that with all Star Wars properties, and I think you should too. And that about wraps up the show for this week. Join us next time as we discuss Peacemaker Season 1. We premiere It Came from Florida, and we do a little bit of listener mail. So until next time, IG,
don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at cinicradio.com. Available for download on iTunes.